Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something you see absolutely everywhere: energy drinks and energy shots.
Yeah, impossible to miss them.
Exactly. And the scale of this industry is just staggering. I mean, think about it. Sales are projected to blow past $21 billion by 2026.
Wow.
So these aren't some niche thing anymore. They're like part of the daily landscape for millions, athletes, students, really anyone looking for a boost.
And that ubiquity, that's precisely why understanding what's in them and what they actually do is so critical. Our whole deep dive today is really anchored in the latest science.
Right, we're using the 2023 updated position stand from the International Society of Sports Nutrition, basically the gold standard on this.
Yeah, it's the definitive guide. And our mission, really, for you listening, is to give you that evidence-based roadmap. We need to pull apart the hype from the reality.
So separate the proven performance games from the pretty serious safety warnings that come along with them.
Absolutely. So we're talking about those pre-packed, ready-to-drink functional beverages, the energy drinks.
And those little concentrated energy shots too, right? The tiny bottles.
Exactly, those 2 to 5 fluid ounce ones. And it's not just adults using them. We need to remember the user base is broad. There is one big European study
That's all that one, yeah.
looking at kids and teens aged 10 to 18, found a 68% lifetime prevalence of use. That's huge.
68%. So yeah, this conversation goes way beyond just elite athletes. It's public health, it's performance, it's everything in between. Okay, so let's pop the hood on these things. What are we actually drinking? The ingredient lists often look incredibly complex, almost intimidatingly scientific.
They do, don't they? It's quite a mix. The ISSN stand actually surveyed what's typically in them, and no surprise, caffeine is king.
Always caffeine.
Found in 100% of the products they looked at. And the dose is often pretty significant, averaging around 174 milligrams per serving, give or take quite a bit.
Okay, 174 milligram average. What else is usually in that cocktail?
Well, beyond caffeine, you see a lot of the usual suspects. Taurine is really common, and over a third of them. Ginseng pops up a lot too, maybe 30% or so.
I see guarana listed sometimes too.
Yep, guarana, which is basically another source of caffeine. Carnitine sometimes. And loads of B vitamins, B6, B12, niacin seem to be the most popular ones.
And sugar, still a big player.
Oh yeah, still in almost half the products, averaging around 20 grams per serving, so quite a bit potentially.
Okay, so you've got this dense mix. Caffeine, taurine, ginseng, vitamins, sugar. It sounds like it should all work together, right? To give you that energy boost.
That's definitely the impression they give. But here's probably the most crucial takeaway from the ISSN's analysis. Forget the complex cocktail for a moment.
Okay.
The scientific consensus, it's actually really clear. Despite all those other ingredients, the primary ergogenic drivers, the things actually proven to enhance performance, are overwhelmingly just two things.
Which are?
Caffeine and/or carbohydrates. That's it.
Really? So all that other stuff, taurine, ginseng,
Yeah.
it doesn't add much.
Well, the data just doesn't consistently support it. We've
Yeah.
kind of been sold this idea of synergy, that the whole mix is better than just caffeine alone.
But the evidence isn't there,
Not really, no. And there's a key reason why it's hard to tell.
which is?
Transparency. Or lack thereof. For many of these other ingredients, the taurine, ginseng, even the B vitamins companies often don't tell you the exact dose. It's proprietary or just not listed clearly.
Oh, okay. So if you don't know the dose.
Exactly. You can't figure out if it's even present at a level that could have an effect, the so-called ergogenic threshold. You can't assess the benefit. You can't even properly assess the safety sometimes.
So based on what we can measure and prove, it's mostly just caffeine and carbs doing the heavy lifting. The rest is kind of...
Scientific window dressing, essentially. That's what the current evidence points towards.
All right, so if a lot of the ingredients are maybe just for show,
Yeah.
let's zero in on why people actually buy these things, performance.
Right.
And the ISSN position stand, it doesn't shy away from saying that, look, if you get the dose right, these drinks can work.
Oh, absolutely. The research is very clear here, but dose is everything. For that acute performance boost, you really need a specific amount of caffeine.
What's the magic number?
It's generally pegged at more than 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of your body weight. So 3 milligram kilogram BW.
Okay, 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. And for, say, an average adult, What does that translate to roughly?
For many healthy adults, yeah, that often means getting over 200 milligrams of a caffeine total. Below that, the effects are much less consistent.
Got it. And timing matters too, right? You can't just drink it hours before.
Right. The sweet spot seems to be consuming it somewhere between 10 and 60 minutes before you start your exercise.
Okay, so if you hit that dose, 3 milligram, and you time it right, what kind of performance gains are we talking about?
Well, the gains can be pretty widespread, but some areas really stand out in the research.
Like what?
Think power and anaerobic stuff first. If you hit that caffeine dose, the evidence is strongest for boosting maximal lower body power.
So things like jumping higher or lifting more powerfully.
Exactly. Measurable improvements in things like jump height or the power output during exercises like half squats or bench presses. And again, it's dose dependent. Studies using lower caffeine doses, maybe like 80 milligrams.
Which is less than a typical cup of strong coffee.
Right. Those often showed minimal or no effect on the same power measures. The dose really has to be there.
Makes sense. And that links back to the mechanism, doesn't it? Stimulating the central nervous system.
Precisely. It's that CNS stimulation. It helps recruit more muscle fibers, but it also sharpens you up mentally.
Okay. And that mental aspect probably helps with endurance too.
Definitely. Aerobic endurance seems to get some of the most consistent benefits. There's solid evidence showing people can go longer before exhaustion.
Like in time to exhaustion tests.
Yeah, or perform better in time trials, both in cycling and running, after having a properly dosed caffeinated energy drink.
And does that translate to team sports? Things that aren't just steady state endurance.
It does, yeah. We see improvements in repeat sprint performance, which is crucial in many sports, and also in sport-specific tasks.
For instance?
Like studies showing athletes covering more distance at high intensity during simulated soccer or rugby games. Or even things like faster ball spike velocity in volleyball, better agility.
Wow. Okay, so physical improvements. What about the mental side? You mentioned focus.
Yeah, that CNS kick delivers noticeable cognitive benefits too. People report feeling more mentally focused, more alert, having faster reaction times, just generally feeling more energetic, more vigorous.
That feeling people chase.
Exactly. And maybe one of the underrated effects, something the ISSN highlights, is how caffeine can reduce your RPE.
Your rating of perceived exertion. How hard things feel.
Right. If the same physical effort suddenly feels easier subjectively, what happens?
You can push harder or go longer.
Precisely. You can sustain a higher intensity or just keep going when you might otherwise fatigue. That ability to kind of blunt the perception of effort is a really powerful advantage.
Okay, so we've established they can work. Primarily caffeine, right dose, right time, powerful stuff. But this is where we hit the brakes, right? This power is definitely a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. This is the non-negotiable part of the conversation. If you're not a healthy, trained adult, or if you're just, chugging these without thinking, the risks are real and they can be substantial.
And the ISSN position stand is pretty blunt about this.
Very blunt. The biggest warning is against indiscriminate use. Just consuming multiple servings, maybe mixing them with other caffeine sources like coffee or pre-workouts, trying to get a bitter buzz.
That can lead to serious problems.
It can land people in the emergency room. We need some context here. The FDA suggests healthy adults should aim to stay under 400 milligrams of caffeine per day.
Okay, 400 milligrams max for adults.
And for adolescents, the American Medical Association recommends a much lower limit, 100 milligrams. Pushing past those limits, especially for certain groups, is playing with fire.
Let's talk about those vulnerable populations, starting with kids, because you see these drinks marketed in ways that appeal to them.
Right, and the guidance here is crystal clear. Energy drinks and shots are absolutely not recommended for children, ages 2 to 12. Just no.
Full stop. And for teenagers, 12 to 18.
Caution. Parental guidance is essential. And they absolutely need to be aware of avoiding excessive consumption, especially anything pushing them towards that 400 milligram daily total, which is way too high for most teens.
Okay. What about pregnancy or breastfeeding?
Also not recommended. Same for anyone trying to become pregnant. And of course, if you know you're sensitive to stimulants, you should avoid them altogether.
Makes sense. What about adults who aren't perfectly healthy? Maybe they have some underlying conditions. Cardiovascular issues seem like a big red flag.
That's probably the most critical caveat, yes. Anyone with pre-existing cardiovascular disease or metabolic issues like diabetes or liver, kidney, even neurological conditions, they absolutely must talk to their doctor before even considering these drinks.
Even a single can. Could that pose a risk for someone with, say, high blood pressure?
It potentially could. While, one drink is unlikely to cause a major event in a truly healthy person, the research shows even moderate doses can cause temporary spikes.
Spikes in what?
Blood pressure, both systolic and diastolic, and heart rate. Now, these changes might be small and temporary for a healthy young adult, maybe not clinically significant on their own. But for someone already dealing with hypertension or another heart condition, the risks, especially cumulative ones, are just not well understood and potentially very serious.
Right. And then there's the sugar factor we mentioned earlier. Lots of these still pack a sugary punch.
They do. And that adds another layer of risk, doesn't it? Especially metabolic risk.
How so?
Well, okay, maybe the low-calorie or zero-calorie versions might indirectly help with weight management if they help you train harder or longer. But the high-sugar ones,
Easy calories.
very easy, often high glycemic index calories. If you're not carefully tracking your total daily intake, regularly slamming those can definitely contribute to weight gain. And for someone with diabetes or metabolic syndrome,
That regular hit of sugar and the resulting insulin spike is bad news.
exactly. It directly impacts blood glucose control and overall metabolic health. It's something that needs serious consideration.
And there was one other major risk factor mentioned in the stand. Something about mixing them.
Ah, yes. Co-ingestion with alcohol. This is a huge public health concern, particularly among young adults.
Why is that combination so dangerous?
Because the stimulant effects of the energy drink can mask the depressant effects of the alcohol. You feel less drunk than you actually are.
That wide-awake drunk phenomenon.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which often leads to people drinking more alcohol than they normally would, engaging in riskier behaviors because their judgment is impaired but they feel alert, and ultimately a higher risk of alcohol-related accidents, injuries, or even worse.
So the takeaway there is pretty clear. Don't mix them.
Absolutely avoid it. The research is unequivocal on that point. Hashtag conclusion synthesis.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize all this. We've got the potential for real performance benefits, driven mainly by caffeine and maybe carbs.
But only if the dose is right, the timing is right, and the person is right.
Right. And then we had these significant safety concerns, especially around high doses, vulnerable populations, pre-existing conditions, and mixing with alcohol. So the ISSN position stand, after weighing all this, where does it land? What's the final verdict?
Well, ultimately, it puts the decision back on you, the consumer. It frames it as a cost-benefit analysis.
Meaning you need to know what you're doing.
Exactly. It requires, first, that you actually understand the beverage's content, how much caffeine is really in there, how much sugar, what else. And second, you need a really honest assessment of your own health status and your tolerance for potential side effects.
So it's about making an informed choice.
That's the core message. Look, if you're a healthy adult athlete, you know your body, you're focused on performance, hitting that 3 milligauge caffeine dose, 10, 60 minutes pre-exercise, maybe with some carbs if needed, that can be a genuinely powerful tool. It can boost power, endurance, capacity.
And it's a big but, isn't it?
It really is. That caution needs to echo louder than any marketing hype. If you're sensitive to stimulants, if you're an adolescent potentially pushing those caffeine limits, or if you have any underlying health condition, cardiovascular, metabolic, anything,
Then the risks probably outweigh the rewards.
almost certainly. The known and potential unknown risks linked to heart health, metabolic stress, they likely outweigh any temporary performance gain you might get. It really boils down to having the right information to make the smart call for your specific situation, your body, your goals.
Well said.
And maybe just to leave you with one final thought, something interesting that came out of the research.
Okay.
We talked a lot about the big gains, right? Power, endurance, team sports performance. But the sources also noted some subtle evidence suggesting high-dose energy drink consumption might actually hurt performance in certain tasks.
Hurt performance. How?
Specifically, tasks requiring fine motor control and precision.
Oh, like the example they gave about aiming, stability, and shooting sports being reduced.
Exactly that kind of thing, which raises a really interesting question, doesn't it?
About optimizing for the specific activity.
Yeah. For sports or activities that demand extreme precision or fine motor skills, maybe competitive shooting, maybe something like surgery, or delicate technical work, could these drinks, designed for raw energy and fighting fatigue, actually backfire? Could they become anti-ergogenic by undermining the very skill you need most?
Huh. That's definitely something to mull over. When is more energy actually counterproductive?
Something to consider as you weigh up that next pre-workout choice, perhaps?
Indeed. Well, we've covered the ingredients, the potential benefits, and the crucial warnings from the ISSN's definitive position on energy drinks and energy shots. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
Until next time.